Guys, I've told my horror story before with S Corp clients, and how do you know what reasonable comp is? My horror story is when they went after that CPA who was a friend of mine for $125,000, arguing that he knew and that he knew better and that he should have made sure his clients took reasonable comp. I'm a huge fan of RC reports. RC reports, it's about $1,400 a year. We're charging the S corps that come to us under audit $750 a piece. We'll probably make between $10,000 and $20,000 with RC reports. But if you have S corp or C corp clients, they have to each year get a report, and the report is as simple as possible. RC Reports has a huge database of businesses. It will give you a report that you can rely on. And so far, to date, when we produce that report, not a single auditor has challenged it. The critical thing right now is for your clients to get that report to support the number they're taking on the return that you're taking on that return that you're signing. Best way to do it, RC Reports. Go check it out. Okay, you can find them. It's trn.rcreports.com. Again, trn.rcreports.com. Go there, you'll save $100. It will change your practice, create an annuity stream for you, and bulletproof your clients' corporate returns. The Tax Rep podcast is now proudly partnered with Nice Job, the experts in reputation marketing. Reviews are so important for attracting new clients. Before Nice Job, I would ask people to leave reviews, but they would usually forget, and I didn't have a way to stay on top and remember to follow up with them. That's where Nice Job comes in. Their smart follow-up campaign recognizes who hasn't left a review yet and automatically sends carefully timed reminders that can increase your chances of getting a review by 300%. I tried Nice Job for Tax Rep, and it's been a game changer. We added 33 five-star reviews in our first month, and our Google business profile is like a magnet for new customers. You can try Nice Job for free for 14 days and get 50% off your first 3 months by visiting nicejob.grsm.io/taxrep. nicejob.grsm.io/taxrep. I'm going to put a link in the description of the podcast. Try it. It will be a game changer for your business as well. How do I manage my tax rep practice? How do I get transcripts? How do I track what is going on with the IRS with every single one of my client cases? How do we complete the offer forms, the powers of attorney, everything? We use Tax Help software. Tax Help software is the cornerstone of our practice. We use it for its intelligent ordering. Every single night, it will update the transcripts on our clients, so we will see things happen long before those letters even go to the mail. We can then, react. We can let the client know. We can get all the transcripts we need to determine what our client's best options are, when is the debt going to expire, and we can fill in all of the IRS forms and get them filed accurately, the analysis done correctly. If you're interested in giving it a test, go to taxhelpsoftware.com, use promo code TAXREPTRIAL, all one word, all caps. You'll get a free 2-week trial. Again, that's taxhelpsoftware.com, TAXREPTRIAL, all caps, for a free 2-week trial. If you love it and want to buy it, use TAXREP10, capital, all caps, TAXREP10, TAXREP10, all caps, one word. You'll save 10% on your purchase. It will be the engine that runs your tax rep practice, just like it's what we use for ours.
Hey, Eric, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
It's awesome to have you here. And for all the listeners and everyone that's listening to Eric's podcast, just in case they don't really know who you are, why don't you share with us 30 seconds of who you are and something unique and interesting about you that we would never have known?
Well, yeah, now you're throwing curveballs.
I got to keep you on your toes,
Yes. All right. So I'm Eric Green. I am a tax attorney. by trade. The focus of my practice is civil and criminal taxpayer representation. So I and a partner have built a $5 million, 25-person law firm, but I also run a multi-million dollar training coaching program called Tax Rep Network, where we help accountants and attorneys build their representation practices and create a new revenue stream for themselves.
Awesome. Love it. And
Oh,
so
fact
what?
that nobody would know
Yes.
about. I played college football.
Ooh, what position? That's cool. Didn't know
Nose
that.
tackle.
Nose tackle. Wow. And did you play all throughout college, or did you get
I
injured?
my very mediocre career came to an ending because of a hip injury, which
Okay.
I'd done in high school and then did it again in college. So that was the end of that.
Oh no, that sucks. But that's really cool. I had no idea you played college football. So cool. Very unique. And for everyone listening, I'm sure they found that very unique too. So just to give some backstory on this podcast episode, Eric and I did a webinar together, and there were a bunch of questions. And we're going to talk about some of the questions from that that program webinar that we did. And we're going to go from there. So it's all going to be related to different topics, but it's all about making money. It's all about making sure you get paid first, making sure you increase your fees, making sure you get paid a lot for representation work, which is Eric's specialty. So, why don't we dive into one of the first questions? Because I think there's a lot of firms out there, Eric, that are doing hourly billing. And how can they change it to yearly and get paid up front? What have you seen in your experience working with your members at Tax Rep Network to really go away from this hourly thing and charging yearly, getting paid up front, and doing that for representation work?
All right. Well, whether you call it relationship pricing or, whatever, the point is, if you're going to be doing hourly piecemeal billing, you're actually not helping anyone. You're not helping yourself because it is very frustrating. It tends to become very cheap. And you're seeing, it seems like in a way, I'd put it this way. When I started doing estate planning, I thought I would be transparent and clients would appreciate that. So I would literally send people an engagement letter for an estate plan, right? Wills, trusts, living will, durable power. And I would price each of them. Well, what started happening is clients would say, well, I don't need the wills. I just want the trust. You can't do that. And it ended up creating more of a headache. And clients would now start negotiating on the prices.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about doing is the way, if you do, especially if you do preparation, then we'll get into the representation stuff. If you do preparation, here's what should be happening. You should be meeting with your clients, either if you do the books, certainly, but even if you don't do the books, reviewing the books with them, I would suggest like in June and end of November, early December. One, because the benefit that you bring as an enrolled agent or a CPA or as an attorney is not just knocking out a return. It's the planning, it's strategy, it is advising. All right. So when we talk about advisory, it's not just jacking up your hourly rate. That's not advisory. I mean, probably a good idea, but it's not advisory. All right.
No, it's meeting monthly, it's meeting quarterly, it's doing the preventative work versus just the reactive.
And the folks that I work with that have done really been successful at this have gone to, let's say, their S corp owner, their S corp clients. Say, look, I can save you money. We could, you wouldn't have to worry about this. Plus, you need to be on top of your numbers. The bookkeeping is worthless if you don't know where your numbers are. If you're getting your bookkeeping like at the end of the year, that's a post-mortem. It's too late. No one can really give you advice at that point. So it's explain to the clients, you need to have a relationship. We're going to be meeting monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. We're going to make sure your reasonable comp report is run. We're going to get the S corp return will be done in your individual, but we'll look at, are there financial moves that you can do, right, to save taxes? Look at retirement planning. Are there assets, to acquire this year versus next year? Whatever. Are there certain breaks that the government has out, credits they have out? That kind of consulting, so that you're not just doing a return for these people. You're actually created a relationship where you are truly their tax advisor from beginning to end. The returns are merely like a report card at
Mm,
the end of it.
I like
The
that.
real work goes on during the year. And so one of my members literally is getting between 15,000 and 25,000 per client.
Let's make
Went
up a
from,
name for her or him.
all right, let's call her Donna.
Okay. So
Donna
let's Donna.
has gone from 500 clients to 43 clients, I think, and has doubled her income
Hmm.
and is now doing what she wants to do, which is the planning and the strategy. That's the fun stuff. No one enjoys banging out 500 1040s in an 8-week period. It's not fun, even if you enjoy doing returns. And there's an art form to it. That's not fun, and you're not really helping the clients. And the problem today, at least for a number, I'd say the last 15 years, because of the national change, no offense to H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt and the rest, they've commoditized
Hmm.
the business. So people walking around in the US don't view it as like a trusted advisor. You're just someone they go to once a year to get the return done. Those are the people, let them go to H&R Block. But what you'll find is, if you're so the way to do this, the way you implement this is, first of all, go through your client list. You find your best clients and you meet with them. And the truth is, you're going to start to jettison the rest of the people. This is the way it needs to work. This is where you provide value. Otherwise, it really doesn't work. And what Donna found is, and like she said, she was very nervous about this, as you can imagine. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
little bit scary to do because you're now talking about potentially ripping apart your business.
Well,
But when her
totally. I mean, going from 500 to 43 clients, I think that's the challenge for people that are making a drastic change. And then the people that are just kind of starting out, it's like, how do they do this relationship pricing model versus the hourly model?
it's for her, it was, I'm now going to start approaching my clients. What if everyone says no?
Mm.
Now what? But that's why she started with her top 12. And I will tell you, when all 12 signed on to this, all of a sudden she said, well, guess what? I now, with just 12, know I can make ends meet. And it really gives you a boost. Now you are much more confident about this, and the rest became easy, right? Going through the rest, lining up others that were good that she thinks would work for, and then sending a very nice letter saying, I'm simply too busy to work on your account. All the clients that are the C's, D's, and F's, right? If you rank them A to F, you know who the D's and the F's are, right? The ones who suck your will to live. Um, those are the clients. It doesn't have to be mean. Send a letter where I'm simply stretched too thin. I can no longer manage your account. I highly recommend you go and, find a new preparer. You should have copies of all your records. If not, they're in the secure portal. Thank you. Happy holidays. In other words, don't let the door hit you in the rear end on the way out. Um, and you jettison those people.
They're on
Uh,
the see you later program.
right. And when you have relationship pricing, now the billing becomes easy. Whether you're doing it
Right.
annual upfront or if you're doing it quarterly upfront or monthly, whatever, you work that out with the clients. But now it's not tied to getting the return done and getting them a bill. It simply comes in automatically.
So this,
And
so we have
yeah,
another question that came in that could tie nicely into this, where, when someone's building this advisory practice with advising and doing the planning and the strategy and the resolution, all these other things, instead of going from hourly or just increasing their monthly fee, one of the questions was, well, are you saying it's going to be for 2 hours of work, 5 hours of work, or 10 hours of work per week or per month? I would say that it doesn't matter how long it takes you, right? If it takes you 1 hour or if it takes you 10 hours, you need to price accordingly based on the relationship pricing, but also having a really good buffer to make sure that you're compensated no matter what happens, even if it takes you 20 hours.
Right.
What's your take on that? And what did Donna do when she did the top 10 clients she signed, top 12?
Well, what she did was she broke down for the client like it's an S corp. Okay, an S corp where they did their own books. They had an outside bookkeeper come in, but they took care of that. She figured, all right, I'm going to need, let's say, 2 hours to review the books on a quarterly basis. I'm then going to have a meeting, and I'm going to need to provide advice. So she basically looked at the number of hours, figured out what she wanted per hour, but then she built in like RC reports, running that reasonable comp report, right? I mean, the software costs like $1,500 a year for the enterprise version. She has clients paying 1,000, her 20 something S corps pay $1,000 a piece. So that software is an annuity for her, but it's just built in. In other words, she doesn't have to go selling them on a report each year. It is simply part of the deal.
Yeah.
We're going to run that, set up your wages so that we know it's bulletproof with the IRS. How much is the return? Now, the return becomes a lot easier when you've done this all year long.
Right.
The
It's
numbers just
easy
get dropped
breezy.
into the return, right? You're not sorting through the box of crap that they bring in with the books that don't make sense or don't tie. Because of in other words, the return becomes much simpler, but she said she actually doubled what she was, when she factored all this in. She actually effectively, if she was doing the corporate return for 2,000, it became 4,500. So 4,500 and 1,000 for the report is 5,500. And if she wanted $350 an hour, she was going to be spending, 6 hours. Right, there's like 2 grand, so 8. So that's a $15,000 relationship pricing client. Right. And because of the hourly and all that, what happens is if you find you're spending more and more, well, then you sit down with the client and say, look, I'm happy to now get into more of the CFO type role that I seem to be drifting into. But we're going to have some more hours here. We need to increase.
Yeah, but you're not letting them know how many hours. That shouldn't
Right.
be in an engagement letter because it's about the results you're providing. We will meet
right.
X amount of hour, or we will meet X amount of meetings per quarter or per year. We will
Right.
provide these deliverables. If you become more efficient in your practice because you start to advise, more clients, and the better you get at representation work, and you're in tax rep network and you're becoming more efficient and you have like a direct line to the IRS, this is all in your benefit and increases your profitability. It's not about the time you take.
Right. No, first of all, to get back to that comment you made, you don't want to get into the number of hours because now all of a sudden the hours become a negotiable with the client, or they want to track the hours. It's not about that. It's going to take me the number of hours that it's going to take me. But in your mind, how do you pick? So the answer, how do you pick the number? You have to try to get a sense of the time you think it's going to take. It doesn't have to be precise, but you don't want to think you're going to spend 5 hours a quarter and spend 15, right? But the thing that this does now is it's much more income per client. You get to do what you want to do. And guess what? There is no busy season, quote unquote.
Right.
For Donna, she's home every day by 5 p.m. with the family. So it's in a way, by getting into all of these little tiny returns. I mean, and we're going to get into the representation stuff. I have to tell you, one of the most interesting things, and I understand why, I will get when people start doing IRS rep, is they'll say, I just want to take on the small cases right now and not the big cases. And I understand why, right? It looks like a big number. There's a lot on the line. It's actually the worst thing you can do. The small, quote unquote, small cases are always the worst.
Yeah.
And the reason being, you're generally dealing with somebody who's unsophisticated. They may not have an accountant. They're going to need much more handholding. Every nickel and dime matters to them. So your fees are now going to become an issue. So one of my oldest tax rep members, I remember.
Let's make up the name.
He doesn't. We don't need a name. He
Okay.
called me years ago, and he said that he got this case. It was $500,000 payroll case for this company. The company had run into kind of a rough patch, when the economy had slowed down or whatever.
Hmm.
And he said, I think it's a big number. I think I should refer it to you. I said, no, 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 no. You've done payroll cases. You do the case. And he said, yeah, big number. I said, forget about the number. The zeros don't matter. The process is exactly the same. This is a company successful. It's just an installment agreement. And I said, and they can pay. So what were you charging your other clients? He said 2,500. I said, this is 7,500. Put it in your letter and send it. He called me. They paid him the 7,500. And sure enough, he did the financials. It was an easy full pay. He told me that was the easiest case he ever did. Why? He had a client that could afford him. He had a client that had a controller, so he got everything he asked for timely. He didn't have to handhold the client and fight with the client and try to sort out the client's, all kinds of issues. It, many of my biggest dollar cases are actually the simplest because I have a sophisticated client, they've been successful, and it's merely me literally leading them through the process. And I think it's the same in advisory, it's the same in everything. If you try to be an advisor to a small startup floundering company, it is going to be nothing but frustration. You're going to have trouble getting paid. Versus if you could get a piece of an advisory in a larger company, your invoices just get paid. You're dealing with a client who understands what you're talking about and can go back and forth with you, and you can really help. And so don't that's the problem. The problem is, especially when we're all starting out. I don't know about you, when I was starting out, I would take anything, right? Because I needed the money. There
I
were times,
tried really hard not to.
you're
I
smarter than I
turned
am.
down a lot, but I did stash a savings account. So I said, okay, I can write off credit cards for a while, but I really don't want to take on anything and any client. I want to do this right and work with like the best firms and the best clients and not like we were really strict and serious.
And no, I am. I was doing like $500 estate plans, and I needed the money. And so, literally, if the check showed up on Friday, I would spend the weekend, like Saturday morning. I'd go to the PO box. The
Oh
check
my
was there.
gosh.
I had to do the work that weekend so I could bill it and collect it on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is very freeing when you don't have that. So, that's really that's a long-winded way of saying, but
Yeah.
that's relationship pricing, or truly that's advisory. Whereas instead of focusing on the return, it's about the planning and the strategy all year. The return is merely the after product of all the work that you've done during the year,
And
and
it should
you're
be
charging
done at,
accordingly,
yep.
and you're getting paid that way.
Yep. So, one of the other questions we got, Eric, and maybe we can tie this in, is let's say someone's got a mostly compliance business. They're doing just a bunch of returns. They want to start doing representation work, advisory work, planning, one of the three or all, D of the above, D all of the above. How would you recommend they grow the representation side of their firm as as a separate division, would you say? Would they create a separate entity? Would you recommend them doing it all at once? How would you suggest someone that wants to, maybe they're not a tax rep member yet, they want to join, they want to learn from you the best, and they want to grow this separate part of their practice and maybe eventually sell off the compliance work. Maybe they want to go like Donna, 500 clients down to 43, but like they're like you, they need all the money right now to make ends meet until that teeter-totter shifts. How would you recommend them adding a representation side of their practice together with their current business or separate division, separate business? What do you think?
I would do it with the business, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, I, as an attorney, don't make things more complicated than they need to be. Why set up separate entities, separate bank accounts? Now you're paying two annual fees. I mean, again, it's not a big deal, but I wouldn't go there until you've got both really going, and now you're starting to line up for the sale of, let's say, the compliance practice. So first of all, I would start just use the entity that you have. The other thing, though, is when you're growing your representation practice, and we'll get into how to do that, you're probably already somewhat known and have clients in this existing practice. It's easier to leverage that than to go set up something new no one's ever heard of. So if you have an existing tax practice, the number one way to grow your business, and to give you some very quick stats, there are at least 25 million taxpayers in trouble with the government, more than 10 million non-filers, more than 15 million with back balances due to the government.
Lots of customers, lots of client possibilities.
They're literally everywhere. So the biggest thing is you merely have to get the word out. Now, some ways to do that. One, the first and foremost, if you have an existing tax practice or bookkeeping business or whatever, is just let your network know that you do this. Don't laugh. My buddy, who was my first tax rep member, Anthony DeLucia, it's his real name. He's been on the podcast. He after I created the original training program, I had to test it, right? So I mean, you got to make sure, see how people react to it. So I got a few friends who are lawyers, a few friends that are enrolled agents, and a few friends that are CPAs. Anthony was a CPA, to sit in a room for 8 hours and go through this training course. And he went home that weekend and wrote a 1-page letter to his clients, what to do if you can't pay the taxes. Very generic. You could do payment plan, it might be uncollectible, offer and compromise. Contact us if you or someone you know has an issue. We have that letter in the tax rep members area. That letter generated $145,000 of business. Why? He sent it to his existing 400 something clients, and he started getting phone calls that went like this. I didn't know you do this. My brother hasn't filed in 3 years.
Wow.
I didn't know you do this. My son is behind in his sales tax. No one can send you work if they don't know that you do this. And most of your
I think that's a really key thing right there.
Right.
We don't communicate enough to the client, and sending this letter out, if you are like this question that we got, where you want to grow into representation, just send a letter to your clients letting them know about this new service.
Yeah, that's low hanging fruit, right? The simple things: get a letter out to your clients, make sure your website makes it clear that you handle those matters, because people will get your name. You don't get business from your website, but when people give someone your name, they will go check out your website. So it's important to have neat, clean, simple website that is direct. If people have to spend more than 30 seconds figuring out what you do, that website doesn't work. All right. It should be very, very straightforward, simple, but make sure your website is updated. Now, once you get past that, I would find what I did is I found groups that I could speak to. Some of my members do talks at their Spanish churches. The church in the Spanish community, Latino community, is a big deal, and just gives away good advice. If you can't pay, first thing is get the returns filed, get into compliance, and like that. And if you have a problem, let me know. And people start to know that you do this, right?
Yep.
Other folks, bankruptcy lawyers, divorce lawyers, their clients always have tax problems, and they don't do that. They'll do the bankruptcy, they'll do the divorce, they're going to send them off somewhere else to deal with the tax issue. So again, no one can refer you work if they don't know you do it. Let them know that you do it. And what happens is, Michelle, and I'm sure you in your coaching program have run into this, folks will start doing this, and a month in, they'll be like, I didn't get anything. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I send out an email. We try every single day to our email list. And I always say, for those of you listening, if you're on my email list, if you don't want to get any more emails from me, there's an unsubscribe button. You can get off my email list at any time. So if you can communicate to your clients and let them know about the service that you're offering, be it representation, or maybe you're going to start with tax advisory, maybe you're going to do planning, just communicate it. Send out a letter or email every single month, twice a month. If they don't want your help or they don't need your help, then they'll let you know by unsubscribing from your email. But sending letters via email, snail mail, text message, whatever forms of communication you have with your clients. I think the biggest thing is, and from my personal experience too, it's just there's no communication. I don't hear from my CPA. I hear like a one-on-one, but I never get like a letter from the firm about what they're doing, the changes they're making. And that's one of the big things that I teach in my course as well, to communicate that, especially with it as it relates to your pricing and the changes you've made and all the things, because the more you over communicate, the more your client feels appreciated and heard.
No, and last is put out, you don't have to teach people how to do this, but make sure you will get folks just by putting out good content. And by the way, we're in a TikTok world now. It doesn't have to be long.
Right.
30, 60 seconds, right? 200 words, right? Which is what, a paragraph or two on just something, the IRS is doing. They've started an automated enforcement again. Look for these notices. If anyone has a problem,
Yep.
let me know. That kind of a thing. We're not talking about writing a treatise here. But if you're putting out good content, people notice.
They do. Yeah, they do. And putting it out in different words. And if you need help writing it, just take your first letter and then you can go to one of the AI robots and say, hey, please take this letter and make a variation of it. And you'll get another variation. Use the tools that are at your disposal. But I think that's a really key ingredient. And then the last thing I just want to touch on, Eric, today that we got another question on is about engagement letters and engagement stages throughout the process. They were asking, what are the different engagement stages for representation work? Do you have one engagement letter and then do you do another one and so on? And then also, I know in your members area, you provide a lot of examples of engagement letters. So maybe
Right.
you can speak on that for those that are interested in getting the actual tools, so they can make this process a lot easier for themselves.
Yeah, I think that comment during the webinar, Michelle, I had talked about how, like, non-filer cases, we had surveyed our tax rep members in 2019. The average non-filer case was around $17,000. And, that sounds like a lot, but so here's what happened. It's a non-filer. So we're talking about several years of cleaning up the books, getting the tax returns done. All right. And when we added it all up, it came to around 17,000. Well, so the question I think we're being asked is, would I quote 17,000 when the client walked in the door? No.
Right.
No, because the only thing, if you say 17,000, you know what you're going to see? The back of them heading out the door.
Yeah.
What you do is say, look, we can resolve this. The first step, though, is we have to get the returns filed. We have to get you into compliance. So my first letter is going to be, maybe I'm going to take a $5,000 retainer to get the 3 or 4 years of books cleaned up and get the returns done. Because at that point, now I've been paid for that work. Now it's ready for stage 2. Because now we got to start working on the resolution. Now the returns go in. We're going to have maybe a state problem and an IRS problem. So then I would say, look, here's because now that we have your numbers, now I can kind of walk you through what your options are in terms of resolution. And here's the next engagement letter. If at any point the client balks, we're done. We're out.
Yeah, and I think that's an important element as well, that if it's about the price, they might not be a great fit for you, for your firm. It's about the way you present and communicate the engagement and having these different stages and starting with just step 1 before moving to step 2 or 3. And if they balk, then they're better off with their current situation, which I hope in the enrollment process, or if you need help, you let me know with that you've shown them the value in the work that you're doing, be it representation, advisory, or planning. All of them should have a very high value proposition. It's not a transactional thing.
No, and so for representation, the point is you're breaking it up into a few mini engagements. Now,
Right.
The question was, do I explain all this to them up front? Well, I do, but what I would tell them So for the non-filer that came in, I said, look, here's how the process works. We need to get you into compliance, which I'll explain that in a moment. Once we have you in compliance, the returns are filed, you're making your current payments, we are now eligible for what's called a collection alternative, an installment agreement, offer and compromise uncollectible. Which of those we can do is going to be driven by the numbers. It's called reasonable collection potential, or RCP. So step number one, we don't, you can get a little overwhelming. So step number one, let's get your books together and get the returns prepared. Number one, I can't do anything without it. Number two, we not only do we have to do that, but now we'll have your numbers. Now at least you and I can sit down and I can walk you through what your options are and why. This
Yep.
way, when you go home, if we're doing an offer and compromise, why you're an offer candidate, how much that offer would need to be based on that RCP formula, because it's less stressful if you understand not just the process, but what the game plan is. And it's a little premature now. I could probably maybe guess, but the first step is to get that done. Let's just deal with that now. I don't need to start getting money for the other stuff now. Let's just get the books and the returns done. Once we have that, now you and I can start strategizing. It's going to take several months for the IRS to get those returns, processed anyway, and we will have you lined up to resolve this. Client,
Yep.
that's what the client wants to hear. They feel good. You sound more than fair, right? You're only taking what you need right now. And from us, I may know eventually we're going to end up collecting between 15 and 20,000 from this person. But we don't need to deal with that today, right? Right? Let's just deal with what we have in front of us. So I do explain sort of the big picture,
Okay.
but
But you
more
have
broad.
them just sign the first engagement, and then the other items are taken once all the books and tax returns are done. And then if you get to the offer and compromise and you
Yep.
get to that, that's a separate engagement. And then what's the third engagement going to be if you get to that point?
Well, the third one usually where we live is the state, because we have states that have an income tax. So we have, the compliance, getting them into compliance.
Yep.
Then we have, on the for the non-filer, then you have the federal, the IRS, and I'm going to give them a quote for that. And again, depending on what we're doing, I charge more for an offer than I do for an installment agreement, right? And then if we have a state income tax issue, depending on your state, then I tell them we can piggyback off a lot of the work we're doing with the IRS because we'll already have the numbers. So the state will probably be less, but the state is a separate engagement. So my first letter says, we're going to help you get into compliance with your bookkeeping and your returns.
Got it.
Once that is done, any other service we provide will be a new engagement. Because the key thing to an engagement letter is you make sure you keep what you're doing narrow. We're
Very
only
narrow.
yes,
You have to.
this is what we're doing. And A and B, I never say we will resolve. I may not be able to resolve because I have clients that don't tell me about things, they fall out of compliance, they go dark on me. They just vanish. They stop responding. So I never put in the letter, I will resolve. We will work with you to try and resolve your issue with the IRS, with the Connecticut Department of Revenue, whomever. So, so I'm very clear, we don't guarantee results. And also what I'm doing for them. We are going to help you get into compliance. Anything else, same in criminal cases. If someone comes to me and they're under investigation, we give them a letter. We'll take a $15,000 retainer for the administrative investigation. I'm not taking 15,000 if we're going to have to go deal with probation, go to trial, post trial sentencing, and all the memos that need to be written. All in, that's about 250,000.
Yeah,
If to go to
I
trial,
think
yeah,
the key thing though here is just take it step by step, have different engagement letters, and make sure the engagement letters are really tight with
yep.
exactly the deliverables of what you're going to do, and never promise that you can complete 100% because you just don't know how it's going to pan out, but you're going to do your best. But you also have examples of all of these and can help people with that. Eric, I think it'd be great to share with how someone can get all this information. especially for those listening on the Abundant Accountant podcast as well, who might be interested in growing their practice a different way for next year and changing the way they're doing things so they can be like Donna and go from 500 clients to 43.
Yeah. Well, on the representation side, in terms of like relationship pricing, now is a great time of year before tax season to sit and go through and really look at your clients and identify who the best clients are who you think relationship pricing would work for.
Mm.
And you'll identify the ones that you know right out of the gate it will not work for. And the way that you do this without really gambling is you first start lining up the better clients. And one, as Donna found, as those folks start to fall in, all of a sudden now you start to need the rest of them less and less. And that is very freeing. On the representation side, if you want to get started, what we have found works best is, and we actually have been running this sort of deal here at the end of the year, is go get certified. So we offer the certified tax representation consultant. What it is, it's 20 hours of really in-depth on-demand training. You take it as on your schedule, but you roll up your sleeves, you go through that. One is we get you certified. That CTRC designation, every single person that has it has given us testimonials. It has boosted their income because when people go looking for help, you're certified. You've got a designation. You clearly have some expertise in this. But what it does is it also gives them a real boost of going through this. They've got the designation. They've got the 20 hours down. We've been throwing in 3 months of membership so that they can start looking at our forms and letters and our marketing and all of that, because it's great to get certified. But the next question is, okay, how do I get clients? Right. So we were like, it was Kevin, Kevin, my sales guy was like, Kevin was like, let's just give them 3 months. Let them go and jump into tax rep and really take advantage of it. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. And it's been a huge hit. It's probably been why we've had such great growth. And before the CTRC was kind of an afterthought. If you're doing this well and you want to get your designation, I never realized how much it was helping folks until Kevin and Beth sent out something saying, well, can you give us feedback on the CTRC? And whoa, people were like, oh yeah, no, my clients, when I put out a letter that I had my designation, I got more referrals. I raised prices. No one batted an eye. You know why? Because even if you're just doing compliance, what people said, I don't have a problem, but if I do, I know you can handle it.
Of course you can handle it, Eric. You can handle anything. So where do they go to get the certification? And then I just want to say thanks for taking out the time so we could answer these questions for everyone. It's been an honor, as always, to have you here. And Eric will be back on the Abundant Accountant podcast. I'm sure we'll do another one for tax rep soon.
Yep, no, absolutely. To go get your CTRC, you go to the tax rep website, taxrepllc.com, and there's a button at the top. One of the drop downs is get certified. And right there, you can sign up to get your CTRC. You'll get access to the course, and they get the next 3 months of membership, which is around $1,200 normally, free.
Awesome.
We just waive that and let them dive in. And if they stay beyond that, if they find, and most do, they actually end up paying last year's fee, not this year's. We had raised prices this year as we kept growing, but everyone wanted to be
grandfathering it in for them.
I'm grandfathering it in, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. It's great. I think everyone can be a Donna in their business and have a different kind of firm. So I just want to say thank you again for taking out the time. It's always an honor, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.